Alright folks, welcome back everyone. 皆さん、お帰りなさい。今日は355日目です。It is day 355. What are we at? Technically day 3. I'm not sure how this is gonna separate out tomorrow because these guys would, yeah, it's gonna be a little complicated. Go as we please. I think there are 2 levels here probably. The current one we have and a previous one. Shouldn't be too bad. I think we've been getting pretty quick with these things. Alright. Maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that. Pretty fresh. Oh, this is our... Okay. This should go faster, actually.
久しぶり。
久しぶり。What? That's oh no. Wait.
Benpi.
Okay. NP. Yeah. Okay. Okay. What? Whoops. Ah, man. Keep typing the wrong thing.
Yokucha.
Yokucha. Hands, please.
熟語。貨物船。
貨物船。
Shimi.
Oh, dang it. I feel like she is often at the top. Yeah, Brokaw. Anytime. Anytime.
迎える。群れる。
群れる。To get hot and sweaty. Let's do it all like, I mean, we could.
興味がない。
興味がない。No interest. 興味がない。Oops. What? Oh. Uncle. You did have something interesting mentioned to you, but you've forgotten it now, annoyingly? Huh. Because like, we can try some trigger words, like technology, New Year's resolution, politics,
正直
I'm trying to like think of potential, like narrow it down to some potential trigger words so that it can cause something to happen.
Sawa.
They're kind of generic because it's kind of difficult for me to do both at the same time. Like going back and forth. Right now, I'm only thinking of in general terms because of the translation, the translations.
Nugu.
Ah, dang it.
No new.
Oh, no.
密か
Soka. Oh yes, it was to do with Subnautica 2, yeah, and all the legal mess that has been going on. Are you up to date on development? I am. To some extent. Unless this happened in the last 3 weeks. If this happened in the last 3 weeks, maybe not so much. What do you want to say about it? Or are you wanting to acknowledge that it exists?
Monomane.
Monomane.
Himeru.
It's a really interesting case. Not the first of its kind, but quite important. Like quite relevant to me because I do plan some Subnautica 2 thing.
高三.
I was thinking about it temporarily yesterday, since you brought it up yesterday. Or was it the day before? Sometime. Either yesterday or the day before. Oh, it was the day before, because I was playing Persona yesterday. Are there some new developments that intrigue you? I'm largely up to date, so I don't imagine it'll be too far. You also saw a Korean article about it, which was so incredibly biased as the company is Korean. Crafton? Oh yeah. And at least ran by Koreans. But the main thing was going to bring up was that the CEO literally asked ChatGPT for ways they could... Oh yeah, I did see that one. Yes. Yeah. So I am up to date up to that point too. Tech news covers those things quite a lot. I could give you a little bit more relatable, like another relatable thing that is personal of mine as well. In the Indie Game Awards, Claire Obscure was stripped of Game of the Year and Indie Game of the Year, or like just basically Indie Game of the Year award at the Indie Game Festival because it was revealed that there were some placeholder assets that used generative AI or some sort of generative AI. And one of the disqualifications for the indie game festival is that the final product or any form of its original product or marketing when it's released must be entirely void of any form of generative AI content. So that's kind of the current topic or discussion these days. Yeah, you heard about that. You and your father talked about that as you bought him Expedition 33 for Christmas and he started playing it today. Ooh, I would love to hear what your father thinks about it. Intent, the nice, twofold, very quick twofold thing. I like that people, it was unfortunate as the AI use was quite, yeah, so I was going to make a comment on that. So then it's twofold, like two main ideas. There are plenty of other ideas, but I have two specific ideas. I like that the indie game awards is using rules, so they are pushing the standardization, the regulation, because in the landscape of AI, the concern is there isn't a push or normalization of expected standards. Now, from the sentimental view of things, with that standardization, there will become a time where there can be granularity in it. But until there is regulation and standardization, it's difficult to ascertain what is considered quite unsubstantial versus quite substantial. So that is kind of like the two things that are involved. Like, I do understand that you can make the very obvious argument that 99.9% of it was brilliant. It was, and you can also make the argument that aided automation, mundane tasks, all those can be lumped into the same. So the idea is, it's interesting that the way it was navigated seems to be okay. Like, there was a mutual understanding between the two. Like, it's kind of like a publisher or a developer who may be angry because they broke rules, and then versus a organizer who must feel guilty for not making an exception to the rules. So it's kind of, I think the situation presents in a precedence, an interesting dialogue that is allowed to be clarified in either way. Like, you can have awards that would say, well, we're going to do the opposite. That's kind of nice because there are more than one game awards. Do you know the reward will now go to another game? It did go to another game, is what I read. I am not familiar with those games, but wait. Let me see if they have determined it yet. This was very recent, so I didn't quite have a lot of time. It was the day before yesterday that I read about it. And yesterday I was playing G5X, so didn't quite have the curious. I mean, you if you're able to find it, I was told it would be awarded, like it was read that the intent is to award it to another game. They actually had 2 awards stripped, I think, or something like that. I don't remember. Anyways, that's kind of how I feel about the situation right now. Like, both. I feel both these situations. Among others, there's like, is intent involved? How do you communicate intent? Oh no, they suggest that it would go to another game. I don't actually know what game it went to. I don't think the article that I read, they have determined which game. So you'll probably have to find that out yourself. But it is awarded to another game. That's the announcement anyway.
申し込む
You can probably find it out much. I don't know it off the top of my head if they have yet or not. It's a really interesting situation, and it sets for precedents for like most of the things in the future. like, where does this pitfall go? Like, you might be thinking, like, you might argue, like, one might argue, so where does, you know, drawing, smoothing fall under? Right? Like, where does volumetrics fall under? So if it's clarified in the rules and there's a mutual understanding in the rules, I like it. I really like it. So drawing smoothing is like this. Like right now, the way I'm writing, right? What if I have a smoother that instantly turned this handwriting into this? Right? So does that vilify, right? Does that vilify the end product, basically? Because vilifying is happening a lot, which is something that is less substantial than... This is the idea, we talked about this so much. This is the idea of not being able to see the process, right? In order to appreciate what is substantial and not substantial in the quote-unquote creation of something, it requires that the process be transparent or be available. But if I drew something, right? If I draw something and it converted it through aiding and optimization, is that meaning it's cheaper? And I'm not saying that's what people said. I'm talking about how far does it go? Like, how far is it gonna get before automation itself becomes, or conveniences become vilified? Like, prior to generating and creating like generative things, there's already this apprehension and cheapening of things. Like, for example, autocorrect in the language learning department, right? When you're talking about language learning, you're gonna think about autocorrect or auto-completion or grammar, what do I call it? Grammar like nearest neighbor. This is going back to something you shared before. Nearest neighbor techniques, right? Is that gonna be lesser? Is that gonna be vilified because of the cheapening of things? Or are people, right? Are people going to understand that it's the process? And process is very hard. As in, what I mean is, it's hard to regulate, as well as hard to juxtapose. Like, juxtaposition gets... The whole idea of the process makes it so that it is unique, it is creative, it is very human and rewarding. The problem is it also means that it's hard to standardize and normalize and judge, right? And I am a fan of process. The last couple, cue pretty much every rant I ever have, because that's what makes humans different. The world we live in, though, the world we see from behind the frame, is not process oriented, in my opinion. Like, it's the facts and stuff are not process oriented. Facts, if you're building things on facts, the normalized behavior is to treat them absent of the process. Like the fact that Claire Obscure had several placeholders, or more than one placeholder, that came from generative AI, that is the fact. In order to substantiate it and excuse it or normalize it or all that, it would require your awareness and transparency of the process that it was involved in. Unfortunately, in the world of high-paced internet, or fortunately, because it's very convenient, it cuts to the chase, it's very black and white. That's what rules and standardization help. And then the process is to be mutually understanding, right? If you didn't understand some of the rules and you violated during the process of communication, there should be an amicable agreement that, oh yeah, sorry, you can have it back because we obviously violated the rules, right? And then it's the process of intent afterwards, like the morality and ethics, that involves the actual process of understanding if the rule was fair or not. The rule itself is black and white. It's the final product. It's results oriented. So, and these are inherently, in my opinion, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive in the terms of how important they are. But they have characteristics that are often inversely, like, incongruous with each other. The more you focus on process, the more difficult it is to regulate and juxtapose because it becomes exponentially more complicated. Like, what is the nature of using generative AI that's considered as non-creative generation by like a generative AI? Like what is, so that type of thing, it's interesting. And I'm looking forward to, obviously I'm biased because the thing that, the content that I create or my vision that I said about like in 10 years or so, or within 10 years, is that most things are going to require some resolution and some granularity in evaluation of the process. Otherwise, yeah, we're gonna end up saying he says, she said, hearsays, and playing politics day in and day out about what is considered valuable, what's not considered valuable, because there's no resolution anymore. Just for clarification, was this the definition you were using in our conversation? Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort experienced when a person holds conflicting beliefs or when their actions do not align with their beliefs. Yes. Yes. It's largely semantics. Yes. So like, there's a dissonance between it because there's no, they didn't give me evidence, or like my examples, the person doesn't give me evidence of the process in which it makes sense. Like, I'm looking for them to explain to me that their behavior follows from their conceptual understanding, right? Because that's required for problem solving and critical thinking skills. If you read "the sky is blue" and you look up and you're like, huh, so blue is not quite green, but not quite yellow, that type of thing, there's a process involved, right? And the more embellished it is, the more I'm inclined to believe that that person may not have a conflict of interest or like a conflicting beliefs with what because they're able to resolve it. And that's what I'm looking for most of the time. If you're trying to help, like in my opinion, if you're trying to help someone, they also have to have the ability or the practice of being able to resolve connections between what they're literally seeing and the consequences of what's happening from what they believe, right? So like, you can say, oh no, the company is greedy because they want to make money. Go on. Like, there's got to be more, right? Because how could you possibly come to the conclusion when you see a company want to make money that they're greedy? I'm not saying it's true or false. The idea is, are you able to conceptualize what you're observing to what you're believing, right? You observe that, surprise, surprise, companies want to make money, right? So then what is the process in which you determine that a company is greedy versus everything possibly in between, or anywhere from not greedy to greedy? Like, how do you explain those things? If you don't, then there's no, to me, it's more and more likely that there's a leap of logic and that leap of logic can lead to decision making that is not coherent between what the consequences are of acting on whatever it is that you're observing. Like, the fact is this exists. So what does that mean? How is this useful? And then when you have a belief, like, this is after a person gets a belief. So like they see that lots of people are drinking more and more water in the recent years. So naturally they could make a conclusion that, oh, I can keep drinking water. The more water I drink, the better I am. Right? A common definition of a man or woman can come across is it's someone that identifies as a man or woman, yeah, which is obviously an indefensible definition, right? Sure. And then, however, you also seen people include things like cultural norms in definition, absolutely. But as you mentioned, the way that person put forth this argument, there are major conflicts. Yeah, because hear me out. Like, when someone says they are something and then they want something, right? They want something because of what they are. You're hoping that when you ask them, they are able to explain how those things are related. Like, they would walk me through the process of their thought. Because I have recently cheapened the thinking process quite a bit by saying, like, you still have to do things, right? To do things, because you can't think of everything. When you do things, there's emergent properties from the process of doing things that leads to problem solving, critical thinking. That's one of the deficiencies of trying to get someone to do something when they can't. However, before that, there's also a thought process, right? The process of thinking. How does one get to see if they either are aware that they are coherent with each other, with their expectations and their thoughts, like their concepts, or they're not? I am uncomfortable. I am incredibly uncomfortable when I'm speaking to someone and they're unable to explain the decisions that they make from the concepts that they hold true. I don't, like, in my opinion, it doesn't matter to me. Like, you're not trying to convince me what you believe is true or false. Is to convince me that you're tying those things together. Like, if you think you're a very, very slow person with bad lungs, and therefore running is bad, so you avoid running, walk me through the process. How is having bad lungs mean that you shouldn't run? Right? And I'm gonna be looking, because I have like 3 or 4 ideas, and if there are none of those ideas, that's cool. I get to learn something, because they might be able to explain it in a way that I don't understand yet. That's what I'm learning from them. They're teaching me something about themselves. Or it can fill into any 4 or 5 different ways I can make an argument for that. I can make an argument and walk through the process of why, when you have bad lungs, you should run still. And that would take like 2 hours, so we're just gonna generalize here, right? This is where I do the same thing. I skip over the process. But I can tell you there are 4 ways that I can think of immediately. 3, arguing that you should still run despite your lungs being poor, or like if you believe your lungs are poor. And then 1 way to say there are alternatives. So, like, instead of running, you can walk, right? That type of thing. And I use this quite a lot, where I pick one. So then I pick the perspective, and I did this today when we were talking. I picked specifically the perspective that I don't think the other person is going to consider out of academic curiosity. And if you can't walk, crawl, but no matter what, just keep moving. Yeah, just keep moving is one of them. Lungs. Another argument is that if your lungs are impaired, they don't get more robust when you don't use them. And that is an argument to try to keep on moving. And a form of motion is running. And even deeper than that, you can make the argument that what is considered running to you is walking or jogging to someone else. The idea is you have to frame it in the way you can explain it. What is considered running when you're out of breath? So you run to a point in which you are out of breath. That would be a qualification for still running, but technically not running to other people. So all those like arguments and semantics and stuff, the deeper someone is able to explain these connections, in my opinion, demonstrates to me that they have a thought process behind their decision making. The reason why this is incredibly important is one person would be very unable to help someone unless they literally drag them and do it with them, which I can't do, by the way. Like, we're talking about online interactions. Like, I can't literally be there to do those things. That would be the alternative. So you have to use your words. And if the person does not resonate with the proper thought process, whether you disagree on ideas or conclusions or observations, regardless of how much text you throw at someone, you might not be able to reach them anyways, because their fundamental beliefs have to also be opened to interpretation, right? Like, they themselves have to analytically or be interested in understanding that. Some people can understand things without ever having to explain it to someone else. And usually when they don't have a problem with that, they don't have to explain it to someone else. Fortunately or unfortunately, the situation that I'm talking about is when someone is talking to me, as in they are confiding in me, which means that we need to establish that. So I rarely ever get past that point, actually. And lately, like, it takes months to get past that point. How did that conversation end with that person? This was a hypothetical person. Well, the very particular one about the running thing is they are already doing it. So they are already like keeping moving and stuff after mentioning it. So it was semantics. It came down to semantics. So that particular one, particular conversation I'm thinking of, it ended with the idea that no, this person's doing fairly well. They understand that when I was asking these questions, they were qualifying it differently. So I learned how they qualify things. Yeah, I preface hypothetical, but I can think of I can think of one particular instance where basically it was resolved in the idea that we both had different definitions and qualifications. And that's where I got the idea, like, okay, so this person is considering running as their baseline for movement, and like their baseline for movement is walking right now, which we eventually got to that anyways by suggesting that, oh, okay, well, if you don't have to run, you can walk, and then it's precisely what they're doing. And then they explain why they need to walk right now. In your conversation on Discord, you often miss things when reading the big block of text. That's understandable. I try to be as I'm very loose when we're discussing in Discord, because while you're keeping in mind what the time is, I am also keeping in mind what the time is. Like, so I type very rapidly, and rapidly is not conducive to big block of text, honestly. Usually if asynchronous and going back and forth is a much more organic measure of texting, right? But I would legitimately have more thoughts than I can possibly type within a small amount of time. And a small amount of time is relative, of course. When I'm talking about a small amount of time, I'm talking about like 2 or 3 hours. Like 2 or 3 hours, that's like 5,000 words. Like if I'm responsible for putting an idea down, 2 or 3 hours, yeah, we're looking at like 5,000 words or more. So that's, did I do the math correctly? Hang on. Oh no, I didn't do the math correctly. It's about 25,000 words. Oh wait, did I mess that up? Let's see, 150 per times 60. 60 times 3. Yeah, about 27,000 words. At 3 hours and 5,000 words. Oh, 27 words per minute? Really? Am I doing the math incorrectly? Oh, I am doing the math incorrectly. Sorry. So like 10,000 words at the cap, but like reasonably when it comes to forming the ideas at the same time. But if we were talking about just typing words as fast as I can type, then it would probably be, we just take the ratio of 27. So it'd be like 150 over 27. It would be 5 times as much. Three hours, 180, 5,000. Oh yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I was doing it the other way. I was looking at a range. So I was thinking like the range was at the lower end would be 2,500, and then the upper end would be like 7,000 something. Considering my words per minute when having to include the time of thought, right? The time of thought, I took a cut of my 150, which is my rate of typing when I'm not having to think, and I cut it by half. So I would say, roughly speaking, maybe I would be doing 75 words per minute when I'm writing, actively creating the writing. For, you know, the kind of like typing exam, like measuring your typing speed, you're usually reading something, and you're reading what's on screen, and there's things like reading ahead, and you're not doing like idea creation. So I thought maybe I might type messages at 75 words per minute, possibly, when taking into consideration needing to generate the ideas. Or I can ask ChatGPT and increase that. I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I had to throw it back to ChatGPT. if you write just above a word a second, yeah, like think about this in the future, right? Imagine in the future that prompts will become the basis of clauses, and there's a chance that clauses become the basis of paragraphs. Like, think about how far we can take this. We can take automation. It's not supposed to be dystopian. I'm trying to give an example because, like, this is an example of compression, right? We can compress things, but then the compression gets unpacked in different ways. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie. Oh, you really should watch it if you like. I would highly recommend it. What was the movie about the linguistics aliens who like made their language in circular form in order to like compress a lot of meaning in it, right? It's one word. It's nondescript. It has. Ah, no. All right, hang on. It's sci-fi 2020. I can sci-fi movie. Arrival. It's Arrival. 2016. Arrival. So now think about it in the other direction where we're using automation. We take a word, unpack myself. Unpack myself. And then suddenly ChatGPT could be aided and say it in a sentence. Like the most, you know, like in KNN, what does unpack myself mean? Or I like to preface. And then somehow it can automatically mean it's a prompt to create a standardized disclaimer. Right? Oh, here's an interesting one that I saw on a momentary YouTube thing in the, I think, the 50s? I have no idea. Oh, no, I don't remember the dates. Very early on. So we're talking about like pre-1980s United States. I think it was United States. In the office, there was they developed a form of shorthand to abbreviate a lot of common words and stuff, and usually it's transcribed to do this. So the shorthand looks things like this, and they are used to symbolize entire words like male, innocence, or woman. Man, so this happens, and this can happen with the whole generative AI thing in a much literal way, where cue the jokes. Fake frames. Fake frames. I think we can get, who's that linguistic content creator we talked about before? This one, the etymology guy. Etymology nerd is the channel's name. I don't know his name, unfortunately, but this is not from this guy. It was like a history channel. the short that I was talking about is from a history channel, but this one, this guy does a lot of AI. They're gonna end up covering it. I'm sure they're gonna cover the drift in the future. The drift from using your inputs and generating fake frames. Fake frames. And what I mean by fake frames is I like this game. Go to ChatGPT and type, write a review, and then you describe yourself. Like, write a review from someone who likes roguelike games, who would give this game a 9 out of 10. Done. And then it would expand to like 1,000-word essay or something, right? But you are providing. Now, this is not like fake is not lesser. It's more like now there's a new form of input where the input is used. Now the skill, quote unquote, the skill is displaced somewhere else. Now you have the skill of customizing prompts. Like you're practicing customizing prompts, not like upscale. Yes. So not unlike scaling, adding pixels. So it's the inference. So now you're working on technology. You know, your skill is to create the nuances of the input, right? Kind of like when you give an artist a paintbrush. What would you do with the paintbrush? Would you use the quality of the paintbrush to scale up something? or to transfer something. So that's kind of how I feel might happen in the future, which is if you're thinking about, I'm going to take a cue from the etymology nerd, emotes, right? So your inputs translates into a larger volume of use. It becomes more detailed. In a way, it's kind of like how pictorial things work. So I'm curious what type of upscaling is going to happen next, especially in the form of like linguistics and pictorial things, because they're all forms of upscaling. Like, in my opinion, I'm being a little generalizing, but this time it's truly upscaling, as in the actual mechanics that you are doing are reflected in the final product. Like words, right? Words are generating more words. So now the medium, the method, the like the actual, the actual thing is being upscaled. So that's what I would call upscaling. Before, it used to be you took words and you were converting it. You convert it by changing its like density and properties, right? But you're also doing that when you're doing computational work, like zeros and ones, right? Into, I don't know, a native process, right? But this is like, this is almost true upscaling. So it's interesting. And, pixels begot more pixels, right? Pixels begot even more pixels. It's kind of like, are we going to go into a renaissance where you do something like this, where I'll do this as an example. Where you take this and you get this. Right? Like, you might be thinking, well, isn't this noisier? Depends on if it's upscale or generalizing. To me, this is upscaling. This is generalizing. However, depending on the context, this might be what the person envisions that their product is going to be like. So they want to upscale it for smoothing purposes. So when you take something like this, it could be because it's lacking resolution. So when you have more pixels, the thing appears smoother. Like things get smoothed, right? So this can be upscale, which is kind of how pixels work a lot of times. Like, how do you get things to look smoother? You upscale it. Like in an animation or something, you add more frames, more detail, right? However, in a series of like words, it can be in both directions. If you're writing just like, and you upscale it to, I almost like it, right? Like it's filling in the other things, right? So it would be upscale if it's not necessarily adding more like depth in a way, in terms of language. Like you can say just like instead of I almost like it, or something like that, that still captures the equivalence despite it adding things. So that can be considered an upscale. Or you can say this is being more specific, right? More specific. So then that means you have more resolution. And if you're saying it this way, it's too basic. So it leaves for ambiguity. This is an awesome topic that we will probably talk about in the next, like, now to probably for a while. Like, I'm downscaling. Like, here, technically, I'm downscaling. That, or you can call it a refinement. Like, I'm taking all of this and I've translated to apply. It might look like to, you know, like a Japanese person say, wait a minute, but this is upscaling. Because now they have to like understand the Japanese and then understand something extra. Because that means it also means this in English. Right? So you're technically doing the same thing but more. It's so interesting. Language in the future is going to be the perspective on how generative AI is going to be moving forward is going to be interesting. Like technically, when you're using an AI tool, a generative AI tool, most of the buzzwords and stuff is you're upscaling. You're scaling up your workload. It's allowed a person to scale up the volume of things that they can do. Or most of the time it's kind of vilified because you're scaling more stuff, but that stuff doesn't carry more resolution. It carries more noise, as in it's optional, it's lower in quality, it's higher in quantity. And the perception of if you're upscaling or you're increasing depth tends to do with this arbitrary human characteristic, in my opinion, the human characteristic, which is creativity, right? And that's going to be an ever like discussion. So for example, when I was doing the drawing smoother, is noise always negative? No, I just proved it. Or like for me, I just proved it. Someone may really love this, right? Which one do you think is more noisy? Humans have a really wonderful knack of appreciating noise. Because the one on the right, yeah, because there's more noise. Quote unquote noise. But the noise is part of naturalistic things that humans find appropriate. So the usual answer is nothing is always negative, nothing is always positive. It's appropriateness, right? Human adaptation. Some people like this more. I'm going to tell you now. Like, for example, some people like, we talked about this too in the Discord. When someone drew a circle like this, and the goal is that, okay, with practice, it'll become closer to this, right? This means this is better. And depends. I actually think this has a lot of characteristics that is interesting. This has less characteristics that's interesting. And then you can do something like, do you like a really, you know, oops. Or, right, like something like that. Or you do Like, these are two different things. Which one do you like better? And I can't do a fill, so I can't give you an example of a fill, but you could do like a Google staple where you basically fill in this part perfectly, like completely in. Oops. Yeah, I can't do it with this pen tool because it's not a brush, but it would be filled perfectly, like completely perfect. And then this one would be like half opacity. It would just be a little bit more opaque. So instead, what I did was I used a different pattern. This one is inherently a noisier pattern, or maybe a more coherent pattern to some people because it looks like it's one continuous string versus all these scratchy things. And that happens a lot with art where someone's like, okay, so someone's going to draw like a ball. This is their ball. Versus someone else's ball. From the artistic perspective of gaming, do you think noisier art tends to display more depth? No. Not really. It's gonna be a yes or no because of because of being an artist. So like, for example, it is the process, unfortunately. It is the process that determines the depth of this. So like, if someone asks me, if I ask someone, explain why do they decide to draw it this way as opposed to this way. Now, a noisier, so it goes back to the whole upscaling thing. Noisier could mean higher quantity, but that quantity requires a level of value or quality. So oftentimes when someone says, oh, I just want to draw a circle, right, like this, so all of these extra lines are noisy, they're useless, as in there's no point to them. So then this would be bad. It lacks depth. Because the depth is that this person perfected a process that allows them to achieve this circle, as opposed to this circle. There's more depth in this circle because it took them a longer process to achieve this circle versus this. If they started with this and went to this, that's the illustration that I was talking about in my personal opinion. So when you say, do I think noisier art tends to display more depth? Only when one can appreciate the basic foundations of the shape. What if you couldn't know the process? Whichever one you can interpret has more depth. It's in the eye of the beholder then. So like, this triangle can have more depth than this triangle. It's whichever one gives you more depth. Like, since we're interpreting art, right? From the artistic perspective, which one resonates with you more? That's the one that has more depth. When we're talking about like meaning and stuff. For myself personally, if I can't understand the process, like I don't understand the process today, the point I'm trying to make would make this have more depth. So the point I am making today, right here at this moment, this triangle would have more depth. Now, is it noisier? Well, these lines could be perfect. I can't draw a perfect line, so. Technically, this also has about the same noise as this one. It actually uses less pixels. Like if I were to be able to draw it as an actual triangle, there is actually less information here, like, you know, less pixels, but the, like, not less information in terms of like some like cognitive stuff, but we're talking about like literal pixels. There should be literally less pixels here than this. So which one has more depth? My illustration today, for the perspective of not trying to think of it objectively, since we're talking about artistic perspective here, because humans are weird, usually humans, in my opinion, would probably find this more interesting. The reason why it's more interesting is because they can fill this in. So there's this interesting phenomenon that happens all the time. Like if I drew a cloud like this, and then I drew a cloud like this, one will likely have more interpretations of one. There is less, oftentimes, not for everyone, not everybody, but oftentimes there is less interpretation here. So oftentimes less depth. There is more room for interpretation here, so more depth. And this, in my opinion, is one of the hallmarks of what I feel when people say, you know, when you like talk to someone, an expert, and they've done something for a very long time, trust the process. When you're trusting the process, it means that there's a lot here. How do your clouds always look so cloud-like every time? What do you think this, like, I don't know, this could look, what else could it look like? I mean, it could look like a mountain range. This is a mountain range. What do you mean a cloud? Look, right, check this out. Sorry, my hands are like I can't wiggle around a lot. I mean, this is a mountain range. What are you talking about? Maybe it's even an island, actually. See? Island. Let's just like place a silhouette of a, fill in some negative space here for a hut. Maybe like one person here. Yeah. So, more depth. Oftentimes depth comes with allowing someone to trust the process. So that's kind of what I mean whenever when I say something, I'm like, trust the process. So you do something. Okay, you just draw good environments in general. Like, if I didn't tell you this was I guess there is a interesting thing. I did prime you on the... And then we can like put in some... We can even draw more scale. Like, let's just add a couple birds here. Right. Then we can add like more clouds. Maybe some like brewing clouds over here. Oh no. I've gone too aggressive. Anyways. It's fine. So more depth, less depth. I think humans looks like that place from Adventure Time. Yes. Yes. It would look like that place from Adventure Time. Yeah. Yeah. Here's like I'll give you a little bit more depth situations. Okay. So which one has more depth? I basically technically drew the same lines, and we could even make it proportional. Let's try to make it proportional. So we can take all the pixels that we have. If we had a same finite of pixels, they look like different things though. Exactly. That's why they have different depth. That's about what is missing from this. You just said they look like different things though, because the process of your thinking is different. So even if you can't see, like even if you think that there isn't a process here, what's making you think they're different things is because there is a process. The problem that I'm having with communicating with people is they don't understand this. Like, can you see the process of your thinking when you're looking at this? Can you explain why they are different things, though? We have the Amazon box on the left and a door with a light switch on the right. If I told you this is how I imagine my environment, the reason why I drew this is because this is environment. It tells me scale. So let me draw an environment for you. What is it intended to be? This is what it intended to be. It was supposed to demonstrate scale. This may not be as interesting because it's two. You may argue, oh, there's just two objects in the same plane, but this represents something else too. I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna draw here. It's what you imagine it is. So oftentimes whenever someone asks me, like, now you want to draw instead of Anki. Yeah, so that's what I mean, a corridor. Yeah, it was supposed to be like a road or a corridor. Like you could draw a road that leads into the town, like with a gate here, right? But the thing is, you're going inward. So this center line was my road, but then I added depth by making it things going outward. And then you're traveling to the city, which then this becomes a city horizon. Unfortunately, like as much as I like to keep using my mouse, I'm not that great with my mouse stuff. So one is harder to look at, right? Like oftentimes there are things that you can do very simple that is very effective. Like we have other things. Scale is one. So this is scale. There's also golden ratio. In a composition, when you do golden ratio, these are things that are kind of established in art quite a bit, like how to draw, like, and then you've already looked at corridor, but this is more like perspective, right? Things are small here, things are very large here, and it's going in. So all of these things do exist. It comes back to the idea of what is it going on in your head? Like, what is the process of your head? Like, in your head, what are you looking at? What is the point of interest? And sometimes I don't think people do that anymore. Like when they look at this word, right? And you say, what does it mean? Well, it obviously means the correct thing. Right? This can only mean one thing. Yeah, that's what an AI would say. Or an AI would then be built on the statistical average. Until a human provides something that shifts this away. That's the quote-unquote creation part, right? So oftentimes then what happens when you're looking at the internet is you're provided with a right answer. You're provided with the explainer. So you are not doing any process. No process. None process. You're hoping that looking at the statistical average gives you an idea of creating a process-oriented thinking. right? Like you're hoping that if you stare at enough pictures of trees, right? You're hoping that if you stare enough at pictures of, like, this tree could look like this, but a tree could also look like this. Right? A tree can also look like this. Happy holidays, folks. Right? These are all different models of things. So if you took a statistical average, you would get, all right, so the statistical average would be just this. This is the only way this type of tree can be drawn. Therefore, no noise. You don't have to worry about noise. And your art can only look like this. The way your mind can only look like this. This is not process. When you're saying you're trusting the process, in my opinion, that's not what, in my opinion, that's not what that's referring to. When you look at something and you say, the only thing that could possibly make me satisfied is what the correct answer is. That is not process. You already have a result. You're looking for the result. So you're focusing everything on achieving this precise result. Oftentimes when people talk about, oh, just start drawing something, trust the process. So, right, you draw a line like, where do I go from here? Huh, that looks pretty good. Let's, that looks okay. Where am I going from here? I mean, I kind of like the idea of... Okay. That's pretty good. Now let's do like a... I don't even know what that is. But you know, we gotta trust the process, right? Like, huh. How about we do... What do you think that is? Huh. We can... maybe like... I don't actually know what these things are, by the way. I'm just guesstimating. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? So at some point, you're gonna keep doing this, and then you're gonna come up with an image. All this noise becomes your attempt to... your attempt to fill in the blanks, right? Trying to come up with whatever it is that you want to come up with. I tried to draw something here, but I don't know if that's gonna come out properly. So like whatever, what else can go in here? Something dealing. We could like add. Maybe like a cliff side here. And then we can like break the fourth wall and then throw in a frame. Right. And then we can put all of this in another box or something like that. You make developing drawings look so simple. I think the idea is to start with something simple and see where it develops. Not for everyone, right? But if you're looking for exploration, the thing that I was trying to demonstrate by doing this is that some days you need to do something that needs to meet a specific, like you need a result, right? You have jobs, tasks. So some days, sometimes you have to get a result. That's great. And then some days you want to trust the process, right? But the process usually means what this is, right? So the idea was that I started with something simple. And then I drew it. And then I asked myself, what can I add to it? Then what can I add to it? And it might end up being something that I desire, but the idea is you're not looking for results yet. And these are two different things. Like two different things, and people do this all the time, even within a drawing. Like for example, I want to draw a backpack. Right? Like your standard backpack, right? Maybe like a strap here and a strap here. Like a standard backpack. In the process of doing this, you're gonna think, oh, hey, you know, this backpack needs a really cute little, like, I feel like it would be really cute to put a little tiny fish here. And then we can add something that dangles here. And then maybe we can add some textures here. So let's put some dots. Right? Or we can even add like a drink. Like maybe like a water bottle. What does a water bottle look like? Put a cap on it or something. Right? And then this side, maybe like an umbrella handle. I don't know how you draw an umbrella handle. I don't know. Right? So in the end, and then maybe we can make this polka dots. This part is polka dotted. And then this part will add like a cross stitch here. Right? So that's like combining the two. You have a general idea. Maybe you want to draw something like a pottery or, you know, like a pot. Well, this looks like a weird pot and it's kind of deformed. How do I work with this? Right? Maybe it's a pot with a handle. And then we can even smooth it out and make this like an outline of a smoother pot. Oops. I keep hitting my right clicker button while doing this. So it's like, all right, well, let's trust the process and draw a smoother thing on the outside. And now, instead, this is the pattern within the pot. So how do we make the pot be interesting? Well, we can do something like... make it like a weird ghostly shape pot with a face on it. Cabin. Yeah, cabin. Yeah. So then it's like, all right, well, then we'll get rid of the handle and we'll add a new handle. And now it's like a pitcher. So let's add a little spout here. And now it's like there's something really weird design on it with a larger pitcher. Right? But that's kind of like what happens when you're trusting the process. Like you're letting your mind flow away and do it. Eventually, I can tell you that this is going to turn into an interesting pot. If I were to like spend the next 30 minutes or hour to try to add to it, and then these details would flow away. Like they would get smeared, they would get colored, they would get layered, and you can't see that. You're not going to be able to see that in the final product. You won't see the process. The process will disappear unless you literally sit there and watch the person do those things. Like these lines, they might not ever make it into the final product. Like this is not what the final product is going to look like. It's going to look like something that when someone looks at it, it's like, you had no idea this is what this originally looked like. And that's how you save time. The important thing is you're saving time, right? So if you don't have time and you have to meet a specific result, then nothing else in the middle really matters at all. And that's useful when you're looking for answers and explainers and trying to save time, right? Getting a result. That's what I think a lot of people online are very good at. They're really good at doing that. They're not very great at this yet, right? When you go out and walk, it's hard to appreciate walking when you think of it as taking up your time. Like walking is slow. It takes a long time, right? So it's going to be brutal when the only result you want to get is to walk faster. So if you're concentrating on walking faster, you're not concentrating on walking and looking around, letting the process of walking guide whatever is interesting, like when you're walking. So that's kind of like the opposite thing, but they're all happening at the same time. I'm saying that people they spend more time looking for a result, and they spend less time trusting the process. Your mind is not allowed to wander and be interested in things. And you don't get here by not practicing it. Like you don't have it's not exclusive. It's not like a special born gene or something. This is not genetics. Like I refuse to believe, I mean, some people might have great counter arguments, but I refuse to believe being able to appreciate the process is not something unable to be achieved by another person. It's often understanding how often you do it. Like, how often do you sit there and look around and ask yourself, well, what is so interesting about that light switch in the corner that you're looking at? If you think to yourself, oh, a light switch turns on when you flip it up and turns off when you flip it down, then that's as much as you get, right? That is the results. What is so interesting about a light switch if all it does is turn on a circuit and turn off a circuit? I can tell you now, when I look at a light switch, my first thought is, I have no idea how that works. Like, I can kind of know, like, when you switch, it kind of maybe hit a circuit, and now my mind is starting to wonder. Like, it's wandering away, like, okay, so let's learn a little bit about electricity, and then how is it a switch created? Like, how many different types of switches are there? Like, does it, like, complete a circuit? Or does it disrupt a circuit when you flip it up and down? Like, what does that actually look like? And then now I'm in electrical engineering, and then I start thinking, wait, but I don't understand how the physical properties work. Like, how does physics work in this? Like, how does electricity, like, know when to supply it to that's what happens when you're doing process oriented thinking. You're not thinking about the results. Like, your phone turns on when you hit the power button. That's a result. How you turn on your phone, and then how that turning on that phone actually leads to a screen coming on and off, and somehow detecting your fingers touching the screen and stuff. That's when you're starting to get deeper and deeper into your process. You look at something, you do it, and then you realize, man, there's so much interesting things that are happening right now. Like, I'm looking at a screw right now on my table. Don't ask me why I have a screw on my table, but I'm looking at a screw on my table, and my first thought is, I don't even know how that's made. Like, how do you put the quartz screw in the screw? If life is not interesting yet, trusting the process can help life be more interesting. Now, that's no guarantee, and it takes a long time, and you have to practice it, because it's not something like you suddenly be like, oh yeah, I can do it whenever I want. If you're saying you can do it whenever you want and you're not already currently doing it, it's probably going to be fairly difficult. Like, on and off. Have you seen all the latest AI models still have incredible high hallucination rates that they didn't know the answer to something? I have. Yeah. And by, like, incredibly high, right? Like, when you're saying incredibly high is one of those things, like, it's part of AI propagation. So propagation. We talked about this. One of my concerns about AI is how quickly it propagates. So even small like quote unquote errors can propagate into large errors. So it creates like a bimodal distribution a lot of times. AI is incredibly reliable and also incredibly unreliable at the same time. Because oftentimes when something is like slightly unreliable, it can get propagated into the extremes. So often it feels like it's either incredibly hallucinogenic, like it's so outrageously off the mark, like off the walls mark, and then it could be like pinpoint accuracy. Right. And then the things in between, while they still exist, it keeps getting stretched to one end or the other end. That's kind of like believing, I don't know, a human being, right? A human being believes that people are evil. And you're in an echo chamber. You're in an echo chamber, right? Because you have all the information. If all the information is in your domain, and you have a belief, and the echo chamber still contains that information, and you iterate on it, then you'll have extreme values. So the moment you lean towards something, you lean harder by self-propagating itself. Now, I'm not saying this is what's occurring in AI models, but it can occur. And it can possibly explain this occurrence. And I've already shared my thoughts with you, Procall. People are learning about machine learning and whatnot because they're still ascertaining what exactly is happening. Like, I'm trying to interpret a result, right? But I don't know what the process is. Like we're trying, like I don't study, you know, AI models and stuff, but what people are trying to study and manipulate and make AI more consistent and whatnot is because the process is unknown. Like you might be thinking, oh, but we know how like KNN works and whatnot, but the results are not congruous with the theoretical concept of the model. So you have to use observational skills and testing to figure out what's missing in the process in order to make the model more predictable. That's like biology, where you're looking at something that already exists. There are lots of information to understand the underlying mechanics of it. However, somehow it has an emergent property that you do not understand. So you spend your entire lifetime looking at the system in order to explain the process. What was the word? There was a word for this that is used in molecular biology quite a lot. It's not, it's kind of like mode of action? No. So what you're trying to look at is all the steps, right? The steps that are happening, and you keep expanding the steps. The more details you have, the more you understand about the process. So biology, at least in my opinion, maybe unlike physics, or I can't speak for physics and whatnot, but when it comes to the field of biology, especially molecular biology, quite a lot, because biology is still in it, you're trying to understand the process most of the time through the observations of results. So like you do something, you modify it, you look at the results. That results will get you some resolution of particular steps in the process. Then you have to demonstrate, and you go back and demonstrate that each of those steps are causally linked to each other. So that's kind of the whole idea of lung cancer. It's incredibly difficult to literally know the process of cancer. It's so multifaceted that even something that has so much converging results, right? Converging evidence, to the point where there is a theory for this, or like a axiom, or not really an axiom, but an accepted truth about this. When there is so much overwhelming evidence that supports a specific result and outcome, it is accepted as true. I forgot what it's called. But in science, lung cancer is one of these. The cause, the relationship between tobacco and lung cancer. However, to demonstrate it literally through a process-oriented thing in a human being, you know, like all the nitty-gritty stuff, has technically not been demonstrated from beginning to end because of other, you know, tying things along with ethical and moral concerns and whatnot. So technically, it hasn't been proven in a process-oriented way, so to speak, that tobacco use leads to lung cancer. Because in a way, if we truly do understand the process, we also can explain, we're supposed to be able to explain why some people smoked for a lifetime, reached a ripe old age of 90, and die from something other than lung cancer. Right? That's kind of like the holy grail. Like if you really truly understand the process, you would be able to explain incredible high hallucination rates in AI models. But since you can't, that's what people are working on. That it is the it is the evidence of demonstrating that the ones that created the tools are still unable to understand the process of the results that the tool is producing. And hallucinations are one of them. Now, you could make an argument and hand wave and say, well, let's forget about the process and look at parallelisms,
which this is where correlation comes in. Correlation is how in my opinion, the internet works right now. That's how people interpret data now. They interpret data by correlation, which requires a gigantic threshold, by the way. You need a lot of converging evidence in order to substantiate a correlation being largely accepted as true, at least in the scientific community. I still think that is held true today. But besides that, correlation is how people think about it. So now when people think, oh, lots of AI models have hallucination, humans hallucinate too, because humans make up facts too. And since AI models are built on human data, then human data is the result of the habitual hallucination in AI models. So we can treat human echo chambers, for example, which I'm not suggesting. I'm drawing parallelisms between human echo chambers and the escalation of hallucination. Those are correlations. And if you predicate all of your decision making on correlations, the first thing you're going to get is, wait a minute, I tried to prove this, and there are 8 billion unfathomable things that would make my hypotheses like trivial. Like, what if AI isn't human? That would be the first question. Like, does AI actually take the same stimuli, the same input, and do what a human does? So you have to start by proving that. Get to it. I mean, I'm not here to tell you that the hallucination, like I can prove that hallucinations is a reflexive exaggeration of human tendencies, which is baked into human data, and it's like echoing the things. It's for people who are studying these things, right? The correlations are places for inspiration to investigate how the process works. Otherwise, you do not get any more details. So to me, whenever someone says they know a lot of things, you know, when someone says they know a lot of things, that's not the same as understanding a lot of things. Or even knowing a lot translates to helpfulness. Right? So what? Like, it's a personal challenge to myself whenever I say, oh, I know this. Okay. Can I use it? Can I explain it? Can I explain why I'm using it and why I'm thinking this? Because without any of those things, it's like information that is contextless, that is void in its use case. So the easiest task for someone to do is they see A behaving like B and B behaving like C. So obviously A leads to C. With nothing in between. Like there's some people say, well, I know, yeah, I understand. Correlation isn't causation. It's like, but why do you behave like that then? Why are you making decisions when you're saying one thing and not the other? And that was the discussion we had, Prokop, where I can't tell you right now how often, maybe like I would say 1 out of 3 people would say a thing related, like say an idiom like trust the process or language learning is a journey. And then immediately when they talk about the things they've experienced, like they recall things for me, it tells me that they don't understand it. Like, the reason why I say they don't understand it is because it sounds like they're saying the opposite. So my question to them is, do you actually believe what you're saying? Or do you understand that you're saying someone else's opinions and perspective of which you do not practice? Right? Like, That's still good. That's still useful. I say I share a lot of other people's techniques and their opinions, and I would say that it's not of my own. I can understand that there's a fundamental difference between what I do and someone else do. Therefore, I am happy because I don't do something and decide everything based on something I'm not doing. Like, if you are trusting the process, for example, and you're saying you're always upset about the results not looking like what you're expected. What you're expecting from the start. This this happens a lot. It doesn't have to be art. It's like language learning, content creation, video games, movies, enjoyment of vacations. When someone says like, oh yeah, it's all about the journey, I'll wait for what where life takes me, you know, carpe diem. There's so many ways for this, and I do not doubt that they understand the concept of this. Like when they're speaking and describing what this stuff means, they probably do pretty well. Like, I understand, oh, you're describing carpe diem, it's a Latin phrase that means seize the day, etc. Like, life takes a lot of turns and hills and dips and valleys. And then I asked them, oh, can you tell me a little bit about your life? Like, can you give me an example, like, of what trust the process is? And it would be something like this. They would describe all the moments that they say, oh yeah, you know, like for example, trusting the process. I study a lot for the exam, and I just kept studying, and then I got a good grade. Like I got the grade that I expected from the stuff that I studied for the exam. I'm like, that's great that you got an exam. Like, that's great that you got a good grade. I'm not entirely convinced that you understand that trusting the process is not something that concerns with what, like, the precise thing that you're studying for, and that you're only studying those things in order to get the grade that you expected. That to me, I have a hard time understanding how those things are related. Can you elaborate more? And the person is like, well, you know, I did a lot of studying, so that's the process, and then I got the grade that I expected. I'm like, that doesn't tell me anymore. You set the same, like, to me, you set the same thing again to me, but I'm still having trouble understanding. Like, if you're going on a journey, but you're already going to know how the journey, like how the thing is going to go, and it went the way you think it went, what are you actually trusting? Like, what I mean is, in what nature is that considered trust? I can argue for this hypothetical person, by the way. They're talking about trusting that they're right. They're trusting that they know what's going to happen before it happens. And they do things knowing that it's a guarantee to work. So they are trusting their thought process of getting it right as they're going. So they could have explained that to me if they wanted. Instead, they often talk about, like, and this is no specific person, I think the majority of people often tell me they have an expectation and they didn't meet it. And my first thought is, if you're trusting the process and you're focusing on what you're doing in the moment, what are the odds that it would work out exactly the way you imagined from the start? Like, what are the odds? I don't actually have the answers for this, like, from their perspective. I know that is unlikely to happen for me. So there are things that I do that I don't trust the process. What do I don't trust the process? When I use my smartphone. if I tap on my app in my smartphone, I expect it to work the way it's supposed to work without me having to be able to explain anything about it. Like when I type email, like my Google inbox, it should show my Gmail. Like that's it. I have no understanding of how that even works. Whatever it is, I just know that when I click on it, I know what's going to happen, and that's guaranteed. Right? Like that's as little process-oriented thinking as I can possibly do on things. When I eat, I'm not thinking about how my stomach is digesting my food unless I get constipation. Then I start thinking about it. So autonomic things are not process-oriented. Like things that you do automatically are like, they're not like completely 100%. So grain of salt. They're minimally process-oriented. The moment you have to start like teasing it apart and like, okay, well, how do I even get there? Like if you're gonna make for example, if you're gonna sew your pants, like you've never sewn before, you're gonna hem your pants up, your pant leg up, and the first thing you think about is, oh, I just buy some needle and thread and watch a YouTube video. Then yes, zero process. You did nothing. Like you or you assume that it involves a needle and thread, right? You might not even do that. You watch a video and it tells you what you need. If you paused for a moment for like 10 minutes or like 5 seconds or something and think to yourself, what don't you know about sewing a pant leg, like hemming it up, right? Do you need a ruler to measure the 1 inch? Like how high do you want to go? Like how would you, like what type of material would you need to blend the hem with the pants? Does it fold in or does it fold out when you need to sew it? And then you go look for all the things that you want to ask, like all the questions that you have, and you're looking at it from a way that you ended up doing some thought process. That is a combination of the two, and I actually genuinely believe most people do this. They do less and less of it over time, but they still do it. So in no way is this doom saying. All those little kiddos out there and adults and stuff, it's very convenient to not have to do that, right? And that skill is convenient if you never need the skill. If you never need to think about problem solving or critical thinking, then the world is just peachy. It's wonderful. If you never have to think about how to be successful, how to be happy in life, how to deal with obstacles that you can't anticipate, then life is peachy. You don't really need to have that skill. And to me, in reality, right, in reality, it's very unlikely. I don't, and this is from non-process thinking. I observe in the world that most people have problems that they will eventually solve over their lifetime. And without being able to solve these problems, they usually have crises in this lifetime. So those things, now I need to understand why that is the case. And I spend most of my life doing that. Like, I have observed that students hit a crisis when they reach their second and third year of university life. Why is that the case? How is it happening? So first I started at university and I realized it has something to do with high school. And then I realized, no, it's not even high school, it's middle school. And then when I was like visiting middle schools with like a group of people and whatnot, and we were talking like, when is it too late? When is it too early? Then we realized, oh no, it starts with like the primary school. It's like, no, wait, it starts with the parents. That's when you start thinking, oh yeah, it's a whole process. So now we approach it right? How would you approach it effectively? You holistically approach it at every angle possible. You do something in a primary level, the high school level, the middle school level. You see what sticks and learn more about that detail. And it's infinite, right? Like it's infinite in the sense that one person's lifetime is it's like I asked this to the person, Mika's acquaintance yesterday, that they said they want to master something, right? Their life's goal is to master something. And I was proposing, what do they mean by mastering something? And they gave a really elegant response, which I quite like because I think it was coincidentally appealing to my language learning. They qualified mastering as acquiring a status, paraphrasing, acquiring a status in which that one can engage and use, or in other words, become fluent in the language of that discipline. So that's what I'm saying about process-oriented things. You can acquire fluency in the use of process-oriented thinking. You don't necessarily have to master it. And in fact, I was leaning towards the rhetoric because much like this person, they expressed that you can't technically truly master anything as a human being per se, like theoretically, because the more you learn, the more you're going to want to learn more about something. So the idea is being comfortable with that, and I was kind of leaning towards it because they were asking me about PhDs, right? Like, what is it like? What is the lesson or anecdote from PhDs? To appreciate this message that I'm saying requires that you have pursued something for a very long time, or like committed to something for some time. And it's to appreciate that humans in a lifetime cannot persist long enough, in my opinion, to truly master anything. The more wiser you become in the things, you can improve upon all those things. But there is rarely ever the point in which you reach the limit of something within your lifetime. And that is a very core principle to those who do really well and are quote unquote relatively at the peak of their game to other human samples. They will still tell you there was more they can do. Unless that human lives in a very small confined world in which they don't think outside themselves, then fair enough. Like, and I'm not here to gaslight those who think, like, if you think you've mastered your skill, then logically speaking, you have no more to learn. And you can use the mastery of your skills and continue doing just that. Usually when you master one skill, that mastery of that skill, like if you technically reach your goal, like if you become fluent in a language, it only opens more fluency in other places that are either you decide is related or not. Learning Japanese led me to Chinese. Chinese leads me to another pair of languages. It leads me to want to go back to Spanish, and then Spanish will lead me to French. So mastery is in the eye of the beholder most of the time, but ultimately humans don't, in my opinion, live long enough to master anything. And that might sound like a bad thing to those who only see endpoints, as in those who don't trust the process, in my opinion, who truly understand that concept. It means that you're never going to be bored. Like, not being able to master anything despite reaching a goal that you thought was originally mastery, like you can pass that goal, by the way. You start learning and it's like, I want to learn 1,000 kanji, that, or the 2,000 most common kanji in Japanese. That will give me all of the kanji and consider me as mastering. By the time you get to 2,000 kanji, you can say, I have mastered it, so you'll never learn another kanji again. Or, you know, the moment you see that, it's like, oh dude, there's far more than that. In fact, 2,000 kanji doesn't even feel like 2,000 kanji. I thought 2,000 kanji would feel like 2,000 kanji when I knew 0 kanji characters. Because now 2000 feels like 6000, but they're the same 2000 characters. That is kind of why process is important versus results. If you learn 2000 kanji and you get there and say, I've learned 2000 kanji, then you have learned nothing else beyond what your results are. That is the cap you placed on yourself, in my opinion. And it's a bit of victim blaming, but they're not a victim anymore. They succeeded. They succeeded in mastering and capping their own skills with a glass ceiling. If you think that the perfect circle is the circle that is aided, right? Is this a perfect circle? It really isn't. Because if I drew a radius, right? And I measure the radius, I can assure you that probably the corners are a little bit more oblong, probably the way I'm drawing it, right? So not it. I'm gonna quote or paraphrase a bunch of other people who have their own elegant way of expressing this. Maybe I should present it in my own way someday. You aim for perfection, but perfection is unachievable. It sets a standard for a lifetime, and that lifetime will breed continuous exploration and curiosity and interest in it. Without a goal, one wanders aimlessly and caged by their own expectations. I wasn't really paraphrasing anymore. I was trying to put it in my own words, but that's kind of along the lines. So, why stop at Japanese? If you like language learning, why stop at Japanese? Right? That kind of thing. And then you might be asking yourself, well, I don't have enough time. Okay, so when you have time, so when you learned Japanese to your extent, then you'll have time. But then you have a point. I'll see you then. I didn't say it was going to happen. I legitimately proposed that there was an alternative outcome to quote unquote the end of their journey, right? But they weren't really thinking about the journey. They were thinking about how it will end. So you're thinking that that person is like, oh, the quicker I get to the finish line, I don't need to go beyond the finish line. I don't even need to know what is in my way to the finish line, because that's not interesting either. Heading off now, 2:15. Okay for later. Sorry to oh, 2:15? Yeah. What it 2:15 is good enough. Yeah. I'll make it to 2:15. But we gotta start now. Yeah, 2:15, Mika. So let's go back to doing Megane.
Megane.
Or Megane. Oh my gosh. It's a Tamadaka. Megane. Okay. Alright. What? Oh. Whoops. What? They used a different word than oh they did, like sponsor or something.
Taiso.
ISIL. It's a really interesting stuff that's gonna. I look forward to tackling all the fun little counter arguments about AI models in the future. But by the way, to reflect all of this, this started with a digression or kind of a joke-ish about Subnautica 2, Crafton, and then it kind of bled into ChatGPT. But this, I anticipate that. Don't stress if you need to postpone late minute. Yeah, no worries. Okay. I think this will become a more and more of a regular conversation. So I'm already working on drawing parallelisms between AI models and learning and how the capacity to learn interacts with the AI model. I mean, obviously, right now, it would be irresponsible of me to assume that the people that I will interact with in the coming years who will have specific problems that they want to hear recommendations or advice or interact with are not steeped in the use of AI powered things, regardless of how much others are rebelling. Like, there is a huge vocal minority, and I think that is fairly conservative to say. There is a vocal minority, and they're older people. They're slightly older people, I would say 40s, 50s, that kind of reject, 30 to 50, that kind of have some concerns and there's some rejection and whatnot. I don't think that represents the years to come that I interact with younger, the same age range, and it might get older because these individuals are getting older, right? So what is 18 today will be 26 tomorrow, and steeper and steeper and deeper into AI things. And I've came up with a couple narratives. The reason I'm sharing these narratives are for individuals who are studying them or now actively using them, but they're also combining them with older strategies or strategies that come from experience. Largely because I believe in people when they talk about these issues and stuff, or like concerns or alternatives, they would be able to better condition themselves to understand what is necessary when they interact with largely younger people or even children, that their own child, because that has to be relevant. It is relevant in their lives, whether if it's relevant in yours or not. Like, I rarely use things yet, but I have to learn how to use them to understand what I can use them for and what other people can use them for. So I've been experimenting with AI assisted things. Procall mentioned a comment that I kind of skipped over earlier, and that was the upscaling thing, where yeah, now it's gotten to the point it was where people see depth through upscaling, or they think of AI as a consequence of upscaling, and that's kind of like a counterpoint. It's a very interesting counterpoint. While I was making the comment about what is considered upscaling and what is not, or what is considered a compression, or an increase in nuance, a refinement, or an expansion, right? Quantity, quality, all those things, in my opinion, are healthy for anyone to be thinking about. Like, at any one time, across time, that's what you're supposed to be asking yourself. Like, when you say, oh, that looks like AI, the thinking doesn't stop there, right? That is a great example of the core of my raising awareness stuff. You don't stop thinking at, oh, I see B, and I know that A is associated with B, so it has to be B. As opposed to questioning, like, okay, so what qualifies B? Okay, and then what qualifies A? Can I get from A's qualifications through a series of steps that gets me closer to B, so I can further substantiate this relationship between A and B? Going around saying causation is not correlation is literally going around saying correlation is causation. I know how that sounds, but generally the time that I bring up correlation is not causation is that someone brought it up as an argument that they don't use correlation as causation. Saying it doesn't demonstrate that you understand it. In fact, saying it as though it's a matter of a fact is kind of ironically proving a little bit that you do believe correlation is causation. Because saying that to someone doesn't necessarily mean they're going to understand it. You believe that most people understand that phrase, and therefore saying it is sufficient to communicate that idea. I disagree. Otherwise, we would not be having that problem about correlation is causation. Knowing a concept and repeating an idiom does not guarantee that you or the person you're speaking to understands the concept. It is to save time based on the presumption that the correlation is causation, right? You say an idiom and you're assuming it's common sense, quote unquote, common sense, that everyone's on the same page. That's literally taking corollary data and assuming it's always true. So I don't. And it takes time. You don't have to always care about it, in my opinion. Like you could say it, and if they don't understand, they don't understand. If they say, yes, I understand what you mean, and you guys literally don't understand what each other mean, no harm, no foul situation. Like, okay, maybe that you both agree to some extent, but it's not really important that you find out what you disagree with. That's fair, right? It works. It's good enough. Enough is good enough. Hallucinations, enough is enough. Enough is good enough. Like when you say 13 is pretty much 15, hallucination. Right? I'm generalizing the generalized and generalizable. And humans are great, or could be, or should be, I may make an argument, should be great at making these judgment calls. Not anymore though. As you grow, as you get younger, not anymore. It gets less and less, and again we're using correlation, right? Younger, like the 20 years old of this generation versus the 20 years old of the last generation. That type of thinking is less and less seldom now. It's about the accuracy of most things. When they are accurate, you don't need to do that anymore. You don't need to know if something is good enough or close enough and make a judgment call, because everything is either it is true or is false. So if you suck at Japanese, then you suck at Japanese. It's only when you don't suck at Japanese that you don't suck at Japanese. You're not saying to yourself, oh, I suck at Japanese less now, and I suck at Japanese even less now. In fact, it might be the same as being decent in Japanese, and then you're improving to be a little bit more decent at Japanese. There's no granularity. AI models, in my opinion, don't have granularity. They have exacting, intentful vectors. Like they're deterministic. So when you're used to deterministic outcomes and in how things are presented deterministically, then yeah, you'll also think about things deterministically and expect things deterministically. And it works really well. Again, it works really well if you have enough information to make it deterministic. I'm not suggesting that humans have the capacity right now in here to determine that everything's deterministic. I don't even know if that's true or not, or if it's unattainable. I know that there are things that I won't know, and it takes problem solving and process-oriented thinking to be okay with that. If you do not understand the concept of trusting the process, then your life, in my opinion, would be filled with examples where you're uncomfortable in starting something not knowing what the conclusion is. Like when you start to study something, knowing that you might not actually end up mastering the language. The irony here, you know, the irony, I can kind of see the irony of what I just said, because in my mind's eye, when you start to learn a language, you'll never master the language. Right? It's ironic because it's never, saying never is deterministic of mastering. So it's a counter argument. So it's like oxymoronic to some extent. But the idea is, if you understand that the more you learn, the more you think you're going to have to learn, then truly and utterly, by the time you're trying to achieve mastery of Japanese, it will feel like you can do it for the rest of your life. And it has its own rewards. It means you never have to get tired of Japanese. People who get tired of something, in my opinion, is when there's nothing new anymore. It's the same old hat. And ignorance is bliss. Nostalgia can go a long way. It might even, in many people's cases, be sufficient to live the rest of their life out in that. And I can't knock on that, because they spent the entirety of their life incredibly happy or content or whatever they have. Discontent is fueled by the need to inject novelty, to break the cycle that they are in. If you have discontent and consistent discontent, change is what prompts either a worsening or no difference, or even a change, a positive change, right?
チラシ
So you get this cycle where someone's like, oh, I'm 2 years behind, so I'm, you know, always going to be 2 years behind. Like, okay. Oh, I can't. We had to first start by having you explain to me how, when you're 2 years behind, how you're always going to be 2 years behind. I can explain my situation. I was always 2 years behind for the first 18 years. Like, I qualified it with saying the first 18 years. But you kind of want to hear the story now of how I could be behind for 2 years, and why 18? And technically, I was 2 years behind 3 separate times, but not the entire time. So isn't that interesting? Largely because, in my opinion, it was important to know how that happened, or why that happened. And one day I will have more stories to share with other people. Right? One day.
地蔵
Oh. Other people's stories. I only have so many stories. I'm a really collector of stories. What is this? Chastity?
Misao
Misao. Alright. Procall might, hopefully, he's resting now, but I wasn't kidding. When you said, oh, let's start another digression now, I mean, we did. Don't even me right now.
Seijuku
It's good. I don't know how to spell. Okay. Oh. I forgot it includes the... I forgot half of it is in kana. Okay. Stop! Okay. I don't want to talk about it. I panic typed everything. Alright.
傷つける。
傷つける。あー、傷つけるよ。はあ。
妨げる。
妨げる。Oh, just kidding. Alright, we're gonna try to go quick. And that's not how you go quick.
乾かす。賛成する。現金。
編集者。
未熟。掃除する。言い訳。
What? Wait. Oh, wait. No.
密輸。
Dang it. Wait.
覗いて。
What?
編集する。
編集する. I don't know what it shook. There must have been a typo somewhere.
拡張。
拡張。Go, go, go! Oh. Twist is fine too.
真似。
真似。簡単. Oh. What? Oh no.
簡易。
I keep thinking that as 简单. They're very similar. Nope. 驚かす。驚かす。
秘密。捨てる。
Oh no. What am I doing? Dang you.
収納。
収納。蔵。え
Mm. Mm.
Hold up.
Hakaba.
Hakaba.
Tennen.
And special.
Sofubo.
Tofubo.
Hanasu. Hito gomi.
Gomi.
Kyomi.
Excuse me. Isoro. Isoro. Special. Whoops. Ah! Mikai. Hanabanashi. Dorobo. What? Oh. Ah!
飛び込み。
Tokigomi.
Iko.
Iko.
Chirakasu.
What?
Tsumekomu.
Nekomu. Heck. What? Oh.
広がる。
One's kind of wonky.
操る。
拡大。
蒸気。
Oh. Ah.
染まる。
Hmm.
里芋。
使い捨て。 簡単。 投げ捨てる。
投げ捨てる。
血液型。
血液型。血液型。
追い越す。
うんI changed the style. Oh yeah.
売れる。
It did.
飼い主。
込める。
込める。
念じ。
小麦粉。
Okay. What? Oh. All the combinations. Oops.
泥沼。
たまる。
たまる。
冷蔵庫。引っ越す。密告。
Oops.
操作。
操作。
厳しい。
書き込む。
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 散歩する。汚す。また。
収める。
Oops.
引
Say what? Oh,
酸っ
酸っ
ぱい
ぱい。Oh boy.
酸素
不
不
審
行。
その
痛む
ハム。What? That's fine. Okay.
迎
迎
え
え。Okay. So where are our separators here? Oh boy. They go so late. Yeah. So that means we then cluster them. Oh no, not really. Okay, I can kind of see how we can line it back up. Oh no, maybe we can't. Oh no, we can't line them back up. Unless I do these tomorrow. And then do just the 2? Oh, they're only 2? Oh boy. Yeah. I guess we'll do half lessons. Man, we're already in the halfway point of 34. I guess we can do half lessons. That's fine too. It's a good way to separate it out. Alright. Do our day 3 routine here. Doing our reads and our definitions. Zo, organ. Eat, valuable. Don, rice bowl. Ah, tsu, vomit. Do, dude, slave. Ne, slave. Shkut, shrink. June. Pure. Ate. Vertical. Sweet. Stylish. The heap. No, no, no. Just holy, not heap. G. Magnet. O. Crimson. Sha. Shoot. Bucket. Curtain. I. Worship. Then recommend. See. Infer. Key. Brandish. And go alongside. Again, origin. On the light. Show consent. Eda for branch. Full bean. Fu. Rotten. Soul. Fin. Alright, folks. That's a wrap for WaniKani today. If you're gonna watch this later, arigatou gozaimasu. As always, feel free to follow along. Pick up WaniKani for yourself. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. You're always free to come on by and yap. It wasn't too bad. It was supposed to be like a 30-minute or less thing to do. Squeezed in a 2-minute, 2-hour yap. I still kind of like doing artwork, but yeah, I like doing artwork for the basis of explanation, or drawing diagrams and stuff for the basis of explanation. But it was kind of nice to see what I have cultivated in this past couple of years when it comes to like environments and whatnot. Anyways, until next time, minasan mata ne. Mite kurete arigato. Right, thanks for watching. I'm gonna get up, stretch, take a quick bathroom break, and I'll be back. Thank you.